Hi, my name is Dr. Warwick Bishop, and welcome to my podcast and videocast station. As always, I'm incredibly grateful that you've tuned in, and I hope that today you'll find the information incredibly valuable. I have to say, I'm extremely excited about the chance to speak with Candice Grove, who is the founder and CEO of Best Self, which I'll let her tell you about. But Candice is my guest today. She's from Burleigh Heads, Queensland. Welcome, Candice. How are you?
Thank you, Dr. Warwick. I'm really well, thank you. And appreciate the opportunity to chat with you today and talk all things PEMF.
Look, I really appreciate it too. For those who are listening, PEMF is an abbreviation, as you might have guessed, for pulsed electromagnetic wave
Lucky there's an acronym.
field therapy.
Yeah, pulsed electromagnetic field or frequency some people use. Therapy essentially.
So there's lots to talk about here because this is a fascinating space. And by way of background, I'm interested and really found Candice by Googling because the business that I've opened recently in Hobart called OsteoStrong has, as part of its wellness program, pulsed electromagnetic field therapy mats. And so I've had to learn a little bit about it. Well, trying to understand who in Australia might be leading the pack, I came across Candice, and I'm really grateful that she's agreed to come and talk to us, share with us some knowledge, and maybe start to give you some information that'll help you decide whether pulsed electromagnetic field therapy could be for you. So I'm not really science. I was more sort of biological science than physics science, Candice, but for those listening, how do you describe pulsed electromagnetic field therapy?
So essentially, it's been around for a really long time, and it stems from the idea of mimicking grounding from the earth. So just like how the sauna mimics the heat from outside, or a cold plunge, we're using all these different elements in holistic health now to mimic external things that are good for us. And it's mostly because we don't get to have contact with the earth anymore, or we're not getting the right sunlight. We've got Wi-Fi, mobile towers all around us, high frequencies, which have been shown to have detrimental effects on our health. So with pulsed electromagnetic field, it is utilizing extremely low frequencies of pulsed electromagnetic fields to stimulate your cells to produce their own electromagnetic fields and therefore action potentials and support your biological processes. And since our cells have an electrical and a chemical makeup, this is why we're electro humans. So, we have so many communication processes in our body that require this. And with this stimulation, our cells are able to produce the right environment for optimal functioning. And in a nutshell, that has a cascade of effects.
Well, for those listening, people may or may not be aware there are some really obvious cells in the body that have an electrical current pass through them, and nerves, like me moving my hand here, are all completely driven by an electrical signal. My heart beating at the moment, my area of interest and expertise, the electrical signals within the heart are what lead to the timing and lead to the contraction. So there's a couple of places where it's really obvious, but what people probably don't realize is that every cell in the body has an electric charge over it. And that's driven by the proton, or the electron pumps, the small pumps in the cell membrane. And I guess pulsed electromagnetic field therapy can affect all of that. Would that be right, Candice?
Yeah. I mean, considering we're entirely made up of cells and it influences cell structures, that means it can support your body from head to toe. Another way that it's sometimes good to explain this, or to give people a better understanding of how electrical we are, is electrolytes. We have minerals that turn into electrolytes in our body, and our cells, there's a process with ion exchange that goes in and out of the cell to help absorb and utilize those nutrients. So we're using lots of different things for our body, and PEMF is another tool that can help with these processes.
So you talked about frequency and field. My very rusty physics memory tells me that frequency means how frequent or something changes, like, something that has a frequency of 60 hertz is 60 beats in a minute. Presumably, you set frequency for different parts of the body, maybe. And when you talk about field, presumably for magnetic fields, there must be a unit for that. Would that be Tesla, or is that what are the fields or the units that these devices can be dialed up and dialed down to?
Yeah, definitely. So you're spot on with the frequencies. For example, if you wanted to, and a good way to think about this is brainwave activity and frequencies. So when we're sleeping, we're in the delta brainwaves, which is 1 to 4 hertz approximately. Now, 1 hertz is equivalent to 1 pulse per second. So when we're using a frequency of, say, 1 to 4, it's going to be obviously very slow, long pulses per second. And that's why we do that at nighttime when we're asleep, because it's slow and steady. Whereas when we get into a more high functioning or cognitive state throughout the day, we're going to be in like a high frequency. So that could be, depending on how hard you're working, it could be anything from 15 up to 75 hertz, even if you're problem
Wow.
solving, which is
Wow.
the gamma state, apparently hard to achieve, but I feel like we've probably all been there. And so, yes, frequencies, that's kind of how a good way to explain it. And with the field, that is really good when you mentioned Tesla, Gauss, we're looking at the magnetic flux density. So it's sort of like the power output of the PEMF. And you may or may not have heard of different PEMF devices before. If you haven't, they can range from very low Gauss, so low magnetic density, to high. So there are some models. PEMF has been used on racehorses for decades to successfully heal their fractures. They use a big PEMF coil and they put it around their body parts. And
Wow.
the magnetic flux density is so high, it can be up to 10,000 Gauss, that you actually would feel contractions, I guess, similar to what you would get if you used a TENS machine or something, but
Wow.
works completely differently to TENS, but same sort of sensation. So the higher you go up in that Gauss range, the more you may feel. But with the devices that you would use for home or general well-being or therapeutic uses, it's typically, and the studies are mostly based on using very low Gauss or intensity. So
Yeah, okay.
that's sort of the range you've got there.
So when we're talking about using pulsed electromagnetic field or frequency for therapy, what is it doing to provide a therapeutic benefit? Well, what's it actually doing? So we're generating this magnetic field and we're doing it in a frequency. What does that do to the cells that then leads to a potential benefit? What's the, what are
The
the
main
couplings?
trigger.
Yeah,
Yeah,
what are the
and it's
couplings?
hard to really put it into one short answer. The way that it can influence a cell has so many different variations. So from nitric oxide, it promotes that, which will help eventually dilate your blood vessels. Now, one of the big things about PEMF is the way that you can boost your circulation and blood flow, which when you have good circulation and blood flow, you are able to transport oxygen, nutrients, and hormones throughout your body. So that in itself will have a cascade of effects. But the way that PEMF actually promotes these is by stimulating the mitochondria to produce ATP. So it's like the energy currency of your cells. And once you're able to dilate your blood vessels and also have that right electrical charged environment around the cell, so negative positive charges, they're going to repel off one each other. And if you looked under a microscope before and after, you may see that blood vessels will be dilated, but also your cells are moving a lot more freely than they were originally. And so by having this nice flow throughout your body, you're going to be able to reduce inflammation because you've got the oxygen going to the right places. You're able to, the nutrition that you intake, you're going to take it to the right places. And for hormonal related issues, which is also one of the reasons for a lack of bone density, it will be able to deliver that. And also your bone cells, your osteoblasts are able to receive this electromagnetic field too. So for bone health, very important.
So for those listening who might be a little bit like me when I first came across PEMF, I thought it was a bit science fiction-y. And this is a confession, but I took the time to look it up, and it turned out that there is extensive bona fide literature on pulsed electromagnetic field therapy and its benefits. So exactly what Candace is saying is exactly right. I was, I have to say, I was genuinely surprised to find research on pulsed electromagnetic field therapy in the Cochrane Review Library. And for those listening who have no idea what the Cochrane Review Library is, it's a very highly regarded repository for medical literature. To get into the Cochrane Review, a piece of research has to be thoroughly evaluated and assessed on a number of different criteria to meet the characteristics required to be considered high level of evidence. So, although this is so left field to what we're used to dealing with in current Western medicine, there is substantial Western science behind it, and it's something that we use so little of here in Australia. I knew nothing about it, but I'm going to pivot here. Because this is a fascinating space. What I was going to ask you, Candace, is how did you become involved with this? Because it's an unusual area.
Yeah, and it does make sense that it's still unfamiliar territory to most Australians. However, I mean, I'm still operating a business, so obviously people know about it. But my whole adult life, I've been very passionate about my fitness and my health. And I'm a little bit obsessive when it comes to if there's something I'm interested in, I'm going to go down every pathway to research it. And I'll be the test. I'll test everything on myself. So from David Sinclair's longevity books. He's a gene biologist. I really immersed myself in that space. I was very fascinated about genes, genetics, and longevity. And then I also went down the path of biohacking. So biohacking is essentially doing little things like, you would know, cold plunging or saunas to mimic other elements, but to be able to pretty much prolong your longevity. So you're doing all these different things, typically in the holistic space. There are also people who will do supplements and things to essentially keep yourself as young as possible and keep your bones and your body operating for as good as it is for as long as possible. And I've been experimenting with that forever. And when I one day heard about PEMF therapy a few years ago, and I was like, why isn't anyone in Australia selling this? Because I want one. Why does no one know about this? And it was like within 24 hours, I'd already had like 5 different books under my belt, and I had all these podcasts ready to go. And over the next 6 to 12 months, I was obsessively researching PEMF therapy. And with my background in wellness in my career and marketing, I just figured it was a very good opportunity for me to bring something not only to my friends and family, but to the rest of Australia.
So how long has Best, and for those who are listening to this, and those watching a recording, Best Self is spelled BEST space self CELLF, which is, I think, a really clever play on words. I like that. So how long has Best Self been open, Candace? How long have you been running?
Well, the name was based on like a playful nod to being your best self, but at the cellular level.
Yeah, beautiful. I got that, of course. It's beautiful.
Yeah. So I thought it'd be a bit fun. And we are almost 2 years old. So 2 years young, really. But it has been a beautiful journey and helping a lot of people. It's been extremely rewarding.
So what I'd like to do is wrap up here. I try and keep my podcasts reasonably short because, well, my attention span is reasonably short. And I think some of the people listening want something that's short and they don't have to keep going back to. So what I'd like to do is look to wrap up here. We're actually doing something different for this podcast. I don't think I've done this before, but I've got the Healthy Heart Network members online for this webinar. they're going to get the chance to ask some direct questions of Candace if they have any. For those who are tuned in and listening to videos or the podcast, you can find out more about Best Self at bestself.com.au, as far as I know. Do you want to say anything about your website, Candace?
Yeah, well, you got it right. So it's bestself.com.au, and we sell infrared PEMF mats. So infrared is the infrared heat, and it's what you would feel in a sauna. We have that in our mat that ranges from 30 to 70 degrees. That's also a great tool for widening and dilating blood vessels. So you've got that circulation, detoxification combined with PEMF, as I've just explained. It'd be an amazing couple, and that's why we put them together. So we have quite a few mats in our range because people have different needs, whether it's a portable and lightweight, so you can take it with you, or it's easy to pack down, or a full body for head to toe treatment. It's all on there. And we've also created a discount code for the community. So that's Dr. Warwick. If you add Dr. Warwick at the checkout, DR, then you'll get $50 off your infrared PEMF mat or one of our infrared red light wraps.
Well, there you go. And that's Dr. Warwick, DRWARRICK. So I know I spell it an odd way, but if you spell it that way, you'll get the discount. Otherwise, you won't. I'm going to leave you with a teaser. We're going to break for a bit. We will do another recording, and we're going to talk about the different things that can be treated with pulsed electromagnetic field therapy and red light therapy. I'm super excited to come back and do that. But for now, for those listening, I really do appreciate you tuning in. If you've got any queries or questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. I really do hope you found this interesting, and please tune in for the next one, because it's going to be a deeper dive into all things PEMF and red light. For now, as always, I do wish you the very best. I hope you live as well as possible. For as long as possible, take care. And bye for now.